Hello everyone, welcome to the Salesforce CPQ video series. In this session, we would be looking at product rules. I am Sudha Sundaram. I have 12 plus years of experience, predominantly in the Salesforce and the Agile world. I have 11 Salesforce.com certifications, which include Application Architect and Salesforce CPQ Specialist. I'm also a Trailblazer mentor. Here are my LinkedIn and Twitter handles. If you would like to follow me and connect with me, please feel free to. So we looked at option constraints a few sessions earlier. Now let us look at the other type of configuration logic that Salesforce CPQ offers, which is product rules. So in this session, we would be looking at an introduction to product rules, types of product rules, use cases, and the product rule scope guidelines. So product rules allows us to define configuration logic that is more advanced than option constraints, but it also happens to be more resource intensive. So when you're considering possible approaches for logic, take into account things like performance. Keep in mind that option constraints are perfectly capable of handling dependency and exclusions, and we can have more of them defined relative to these product rules, which are a little bit more intensive. So make sure you're choosing the right tool for the right task. So a good example for product rule would be if we want to show an ad or just hide and remove product options, then we could do that using the product rules. There are four basic types of product rules, and they are validation, alert, selection, and filter. Now let us take a deep look into what each of these product rule types mean. So the first one is validation. So this one is very identical in concept to Salesforce validation rules. It displays an error message which prevents us from saving until we have taken an action to fix what is incorrect. Alert, this is really like a validation rule, except that it is a soft validation. So it displays a message to the user, but the user can choose whether to acknowledge it and continue or cancel and address the issue. The next one is selection, and this is most popular type of product rules that is used. So this one automatically performs actions on product options without displaying a message to the user. So selection rules actually are pretty cool, because they can really help improve the user experience. We saw that the option constraints can enable or disable options, right? Product rules can do that too, but can also hide and show product options. But the most powerful feature of product selection rules is that they can add and remove options automatically when certain conditions are met. The last type of product rule is filter. So this one allows sales reps to choose their own options from the bundle. We call this as dynamic bundles. Filter rules can be used to filter the options they can choose from. So this one uses configuration rules to target a bundle feature, and the product rule actions to determine whether certain options appear when users configure a bundle. Now, let us take a look at how these product rules are set up. Product rule comprises of the product rule itself, and then three related objects: error conditions, product actions, and configuration rule. So the error conditions define what conditions fire the rule. We could have one condition or 10 conditions and say some or all of them need to be satisfied to fire the rule. Product actions define what action the rules take. We only define product actions for selection rules and filter rules, as they are the ones that take action on products like adding or removing or enabling or disabling or dynamically filtering. Finally, we link the product rule we created to the bundle by creating the configuration rule. Moving on, let us look at each of the product rule types with an example. So the first one we would be looking at is validation. Say, for example, we have an iPhone 12 bundle. which has a few product options. So one is an Apple Smartwatch Series 5, another one is an Apple Smartwatch Series 6, and the third one is an Apple Smartwatch warranty. So say, for example, we want to create a validation product rule to check if the quantity of this Apple Smartwatch warranty option here is greater than the sum of the Apple smartwatches purchased as part of this bundle. So it could be a sum of Series 5 plus Series 6 quantity if the user has selected both. And if the quantity of the warranty is greater than the sum of the quantity of the smartwatches, then we want to have a validation rule message here, which says you can only purchase one smartwatch warranty per Apple smartwatch. Please check the quantity and update accordingly. So we are trying to create this product rule to ensure user purchases only one warranty per smartwatch, and we don't want to sell multiple warranties for the same smartwatch. So we want to have a rule which will kind of regulate this. So that is why we created a validation product rule for this. So in conjunction with validation product rule, I also want to talk about summary variables. So when we say we want to calculate the sum of the quantity of the Apple smartwatches, meaning Series 5 and Series 6, we would be using summary variables for this. So what are summary variables? Summary variables summarize the number field information about the products into a single object. So we can reference a summary variable in price conditions, price actions, product rule error conditions, code term conditions, and other summary variables. A summary variable targets a field on an object and then performs a math function on that particular field. So in relation to the product rules, we can use a summary variable as a tested variable or a filter variable. And here's a quick example of the summary variables I created to get the sum of Apple smartwatch quantity and the Apple smartwatch warranty. So if you notice here, there is a variable name which tells you what summary variable it is, a descriptive name. And if you notice here, we've also given the target object as the product option, and the aggregate function is going to be the sum of the quantity. So we are looking at sum of quantity of the product family. Basically what we are trying to filter is the product option, which have product family, which is equal to Apple Watch. So my Apple Watch Series 5 and Series 6 belong to a product family called Apple Watch. So what I have done here is to get the sum of the quantity. So the aggregate function defines what kind of math function I want to do and on what particular field. And the object is going to be product option. So I only wanted on the product option the sum of the quantity of all product options which belongs to the product family Apple Watch. Similarly, to know the sum of quantity of my Apple Watch warranty, what I have done is I've done a similar thing. So I've done a sum of quantity of the product options which belong to the product code, because I already know my product code for this warranty. So I've just given the product code and I've said it's equal to ASM-warranty. So this is a typical example of summary variable. So a few points to note here whenever we use summary variables. So product scope, product rule, error conditions, and configurator scope, price rules cannot use summary variables that target code lines. So this is an important thing to note when you're using summary variables. And summary variables incur an expense like SOQL queries. So like how SOQL queries work, summary variables work in a very similar fashion. So be mindful of how many summary variables you're executing at one time. Excessive use of summary variables will result in performance and governor limit issues. Now we are in Salesforce CPQ application. And let us take a quick look at how do we create this validation product rule. And we'll also look at key fields that we need to know about when we create product rules. So before we jump into the product rules, let's quickly see what we are trying to accomplish here. So I'm on a quote. When I try to add my iPhone 12 product, I want to ensure that the quantity of the warranty that I pick does not exceed the total quantity of the Apple watches that are being sold. So I'm going to pick Apple iPhone, which is my bundle product, against which I'm going to define this particular product rule. So if we go down here, we notice that there is a feature for warranty, which has Apple smartwatch warranty. And we also have accessories here, which has Apple Watch Series 6 and Apple Watch Series 5 as the product options here. So what we're trying to accomplish here is whenever we are trying to purchase the Apple Watch Series 6, Series 5, for example, I want to purchase one of each. We want to ensure that I only pick 2 of the warranty for this, because the total quantity of the Apple Watch is going to be 1 + 1, which is 2. So I should not purchase more than 2 warranty for this particular bundle. So that is the use case that we're going to look at. So let us see how do we accomplish this. Let's get to our product rules. So product rules is a tab in Salesforce CPQ. And for demo purposes, I've already went ahead and created a particular product rule for validation called the validate smartwatch warranty quantity. So once I go in, this is how the product rule works. So first there's the product rule name. So please give a descriptive name so that when you come back later, you understand why you have this product rule. And the next one is an active checkbox. This is to ensure that your product rule is active. And type is where we choose what type of product rule this is. So we talked about the 4 different types of product rule, right? Validation, selection, alert, filter. So this is where we pick what type of product rule we are creating. So condition met typically is all or any or custom. So what it means is, so you're trying to say whether all my conditions needs to be met, or if any condition is met, it's still okay. So you're trying to define that here against your product rule. Scope can be product or code. So these are the typical choices. A product scoped rule means that it'll fire inside of a configurator. Code scoped product rule means that it'll fire inside code line editor. It's not just focused on one bundle like a product scoped rule, but the rule will fire on the code line editor and looks across products on a code. So it's not just against one bundle, but across products on your code. So substantial amounts of rules in a well-designed Salesforce CPQ implementation will be a product scoped rules. And we will later our session look at why that is important and what are the limitations of the code scoped rules as well. And moving on, there are a few more fields here. One is advanced conditions. Say, for example, you want to, say 1 or 2 and 3. So you have like 3 conditions and you're trying to evaluate saying if 1 is satisfied or 2 and 3. So if that kind of a complex condition you want to include, then that's done in advanced condition. And let me scroll further down and you will see there's an evaluation event. So use the evaluation event field to determine when Salesforce CPQ considers and runs this particular product rule. So load means when the user loads the configurator. Edit means when the user changes a field in the configurator, basically when you perform an edit operation. Save means when the user saves via save or quick save button code in a configurator. And always means when any user loads, edits, or saves a code. Basically, when any of the above operations like load, edit, or save happens, if you want all the time for your rule to be evaluated, then please choose always here. And then evaluation order. So this one, like if we have multiple rules and we need to fire them in a particular sequence, we can define the order here. The same best practice like we discussed in features and options, leave some gaps between the numbers so we can insert a rule in the middle easily without having to renumber a bunch of them. Message. So message is typically for validation and alert rules and not for selection rules. So we key in the message that we want the product rule to display once it gets fired. So it's like how we give a message for validation rules. It's the same way we give the message here. So that's all in the product rule itself. So if you look here, we were trying to do validation rule because we're trying to validate if the quantity of smartwatch warranty is greater than the quantity of the Apple Watch product options, right? So I've given validation and I want this to be fired in the configurator. So my scope is product. Evaluation event is always, I wanted to evaluate when it's loading, editing, and saving. So any time. So I want it always. And condition met is all. Though it technically doesn't make sense here because I just have one condition, but this is useful when you have multiple conditions and you want to evaluate all of them. And I've given my message here. So I'm saying you can only purchase one smartwatch warranty per Apple smartwatch. Please check the quantity and update accordingly. So this is what will display in the UI once this product rule fires. It evaluates and confirms that the Apple Watch warranty is higher or greater in number than the quantity of the Apple Watches purchased. So I'm going to hit cancel and quickly go up here to the related sections. So if you notice here, like I mentioned earlier, there are a few related tabs. So the one related list for error conditions, this is where we define the product rule conditions. There's one for actions, and also we would look at configurations rules in a bit. So first, let's look at the condition that we have created. So tell error conditions clearly what to look for, as this determines when the rule fires. So there are a few important fields here which we will look at. The first, the rule itself, against which rule this condition is defined. And there are a few fields here which are like tested object, tested field, tested attribute, and tested variable. So tested object, so it can look at configuration attribute or quote or quote line group or product option or a graded asset. So technically what we tell in this particular field is which object should this particular condition test or this particular product rule work against, right? So we are trying to test what object and we are trying to test what field is what we gave in the tested object and the tested field. So tested attribute is used when your tested field is going to be a global attribute. So again, it's only for global attribute fields. And the next one, which is a tested variable. So tested variable, we look at variable summary here. So typically, instead of using a field, we could also look at a variable summary instead of a field. And summary variable typically works like a roll-up summary field. It examines the number of records and aggregates the data from them. It could like count them or sum them or do any other aggregation options that we select. In our case here, we have gone ahead with a summary variable because we're trying to sum the quantities of the Apple smartwatch warranty. And what we are going to do is we are going to see if this particular summary variable, the response we get if the quantity is greater than, which is in the filter information, saying it's greater than another variable, which is going to be the sum of the quantity of the Apple smartwatch we purchased. So I'm going to quickly cancel here and jump into the summary variable to show how the summary variables are configured. If we get into the summary variable real quick to see how it is set up. So we want to calculate the total quantity of the Apple smartwatch warranty we have selected. So it will sum up the quantity field. So if you note down here, its aggregate function is sum. There are different aggregate functions that you can have your summary variable look into. It could count, sum, average, min, max. So in our case, we want to sum. And aggregate field is the quantity field, right? So we want to sum the quantity of the product option, which is our target object. And we are saying you sum the quantity of the product options, which all have product code that is equal to ASM warranty. So that is how we have defined this. To summarize, it will sum up the quantity field, which is the aggregate field, from all the product options, which is defined in the target object in this particular bundle. So it is going to take a look at all of the product options in the configurator that has been selected, and it is going to sum up their quantities which match this criteria, the product code being equal to ASM warranty. So that is where we use the filter information for, right? So in our case, we could look at the product code that is equal to ASM warranty and look for any product option which has this product code. If you have a different use case, you can do that as well. You have different filter fields that we could add here. You just need to go ahead and update this pickless field if you do not see your particular field here. And there are multiple different operators like equals, not equals, less than, less or equal, greater than, greater or equals, and so on. And we can use a filter value here. So typically filter information is used to filter the product options based on the criteria. So also keep in mind which objects we are working with. So keep in mind what summary variable is evaluating. It is not evaluating products, but it's evaluating product options, right, within a bundle. That's what the summary variable does. So we need to pull that value over from the product record to product option, as the summary variable will only look for it in the product options. So since we have the product code, which we are trying to filter on the product option as well, we are good here. But in case you're trying to use some other custom field that is in a product, ensure you're creating the field with the same API name and product option and use that particular field here. So your summary variable can evaluate that. And a summary variable doesn't do anything by itself, right? So it really is just a query that is going to take the quantity it finds and going to return it to the error condition. So that's all your summary variable would do. So in our case, we wanted to compare this summary variable with another summary variable. So let us go and take a quick look at that summary variable too. So the second summary variable we created is for the sum of Apple smartwatch quantity. So again, here I've given a variable name that is descriptive. And what I'm trying to do here is take a sum of the quantity of all the product options that belong to the product family, which is equal to Apple Watch. So that is what I'm trying to fetch here using this particular summary variable. So now if I quickly move on to my product rule itself, you will notice here that in my error conditions, we are trying to see if the sum of the quantity of the Apple smartwatch warranty is greater than the sum of the smartwatch quantity summary variable, which we are using to fetch the quantity of all the product options that belong to the product family Apple Watch. So we are going to test this, and if this becomes true, then we are going to fire this product rule and we are going to display that particular message. One final thing we need to do on this product rule is to link this validation type product rule that we have created now to the product bundle. Since we want this to be evaluated against the iPhone 12 product bundle, I have gone ahead and created a configuration rule. Configuration rule is a related list on the product rules itself. So if you see here, I've made this configuration rule active and I've picked my product bundle, which is iPhone 12 here. And you can also see that this particular product rule is linked against this particular bundle. So only if we do this, this product rule will fire on our bundle product when we add it to the code. Now let me quickly go into the code and see this in action. So I'm here on my code. I've already added this particular product. So I have both these watch series 5 and series 6 selected. I have one of each. What I'm trying to do here is I'm going to just say I want 3 of the warranty. So the number is greater than the total of the Apple Watches. And let me quickly go and pick the mandatory ones. So if you notice here, it says you can only purchase 1 smartwatch warranty per Apple smartwatch. Please check the quantity and update accordingly. So that's the product rule of validation type we fired, right? So it looked for my quantities, it looked for some of my quantities of the Apple Watch. and it tried to evaluate to see if my warranty quantity is greater than the sum of the quantities of my Apple Watch. Since the condition is true, it has gone ahead and fired my product rule and displays this particular message here. So unless I correct this and update my quantity, I will not be able to save this particular record. It will keep popping up this message because this is not an alert. This is a validation rule. I need to go ahead and change my quantity. So only when I go ahead and change this particular quantity of my warranty to be equal to or less than the sum of the quantities of my Apple Watches, only then I will be able to save this particular code. So now that we looked at what validation product rule type is and how do we create a product rule of type validation, let's move ahead and look at what alert product rule type is. So like I mentioned earlier, alert is really like a validation rule, except that it is a soft validation. It displays a message to the user, but the user can choose to acknowledge and continue anyway, or cancel and address the issue. Let's quickly look at a use case here. So we have the same iPhone 12 bundle. We have a couple of product options which we're going to evaluate this rule against. So we are looking at Apple Smartwatch Series 5 and Series 6. And our rule is going to check if the customer selects Apple Smartwatch Series 5, then we want to alert the user saying, hey, there is a latest version of smartwatch available, Series 6. So why don't you pick that up, right? So add to your style and trend by upgrading to Series 6. So what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to alert the user that we have a latest model, and if they wish, they could go ahead and upgrade to the latest model. But again, since it's not a validation rule and it is a soft validation, right, which is alert, user can choose to acknowledge this message and continue anyway with their own selection, which is Series 5, or they can decide, oh yeah, so let me go ahead and pick this latest model and then go back and change to Series 6 smartwatch. So that is what alert product rule type does. We are in Salesforce CPQ application and we are in the product rules. Let's take a quick look at this alert that we tried to create. So I'll quickly get into my product rule. Keep the product rule name descriptive. I've named it as alert on latest smartwatch model. I've made it active so that it fires. And the type is going to be alert because that's the type we want here, right? We don't want it to be validation. We just want to alert the user with the message. Conditions met is all, and the scope is going to be in the product configurator, so it's going to be product. I'm going to evaluate this product rule always, and I give my message which needs to be displayed in the UI if the condition is met here. Let's quickly scroll down and look at our condition that we have created. So here, last time for our validation rule, we use the variable, right? Remember, we use the summary variables. Here, we are trying to use the object and the field. So the tested object is going to be the product option, and we are trying to test the field against product code, right? Because we already know our Series 5 product code. So what we are trying to do is if the product options product code equals to AWSS5, because that is our product code of our smartwatch Series 5, then we want to fire this particular rule. So anytime a user goes and picks an Apple smartwatch 5, and then we want to alert saying that there is a new model that we have, and if you would like, you can go ahead and upgrade to that. One final step we need to take before we finish configuring this product rule is once we have done with defining our product rule and conditions or actions, ensure that your product rule is linked to the product bundle, right? We are saying we want this on the iPhone 12 product bundle. So use the configuration rules related list on the product rule to define this particular link. So I'll quickly click on this rule to show you how I have done this. So this rule is active. And if you notice here, the product we are trying to use this product rule against is the iPhone 12. So I've picked my bundle product here, and the rule is automatically populated because I'm doing this directly from the product rule. So this is how you link your product rule with the bundle. On to our code and see how this works. I'm going to click on Edit Lines. And I'm going to add this particular bundle. Let me quickly pick a carrier. And if I go further down and say I use Apple Watch Series 5, I pick this one instead of Series 6, and I say save. It's going to give me this alert message saying there's a latest version of smartwatch available, Series 6. And I can choose whether I want to continue or I want to cancel and change it. So I could cancel, go back and say, okay, fine, I'll go and pick this Apple Watch Series 6 instead of Series 5. And I could do that. So this is what the alert rule does. Now that we have looked at the validation type of product rule and the alert type, let's go ahead and look at the most popular type of product rule, which is selection. So we're going to look at two different use cases here, and then we will jump into our Salesforce CPQ application to see how different this is from the validation and alert product rule types we created earlier. So the first use case is we have an iPhone 12 bundle, and we have multiple product options under that bundle. So it's like your cellular plans, right? You have ATT budget plan, ATT family plan, T-Mobile budget plan, T-Mobile family plan. These are all different product options against this particular bundle. And we have a configuration attribute for carrier. If you remember from our attribute session, we had created this configuration attribute to filter carrier like ATT, T-Mobile, so that we can pick cellular plans based on that. So we have a bundle, we have multiple product options, and we have a configuration attribute. So now, say for example, the carrier the user picks is AT&T. Then what we want to do is we want to show and add the ATT budget plan product option automatically, meaning you want to display it and automatically select it. When I say add, it means selecting this product option automatically in our product configurator. Then show the ATT family plan. So it's not added automatically, but it is there for selection if you would like to. And we are going to hide and remove this T-Mobile budget plan, and we are going to hide and remove the T-Mobile family plan. So when I say hide and remove, what it means is you're going to hide these two product options, and if it was selected earlier, then we want to deselect it, basically remove those selections as well, and ensure we are showing that ATT budget plan, which is selected by default, and the ATT family plan as the product options. This is one use case that we would look at. And the second one that we would look at is very similar. So we have the iPhone 12 bundle and the same set of product options and the same configuration attribute. We are going to work with a different carrier option here. Say, for example, instead of AT&T, we have T-Mobile selected, right? So then we want to show and add the T-Mobile budget plan, which is a basic plan as a product option. And we also want to show T-Mobile family plan so that if they don't want the budget plan, they are able to go ahead and select the family plan. And then since the ATT budget plan and ATT family plan are not related to the T-Mobile family, we're going to work a little different this way. We're going to see whether we can disable and remove it. So basically, disable will not make these two product options available for selection. So it's not going to hide it. It is still going to be visible. So these two product options, in contrary to the ATT example we saw, it's not going to be hidden. It's going to be disabled. So it's going to show up in the product options. It's going to be disabled. Basically, you will not be able to select it. And if it was earlier selected, we want to remove the selection as well. So this will go ahead and deselect it. So these are the two use cases that we would look at. So here is a quick table about action types, right? So we were talking about show and add, and hide and remove, disable and remove, and things like that. So this is defined at the product rule action. So we already looked at how we define a product rule and how we define error conditions, right, for validation and alert. We did not have to bother about the actions in those two particular rules we discussed. But now that we are in the selection rules, we would be defining actions, because this would automatically, show or hide or add a product option. So it's going to perform an action. So these are different types that you would see in the action, product action against product rules when you do the type selected as selection, right? So the first one is add here. So what add would do is it'll add the specified option. It's just going to go ahead and add the option that you're specifying once the rule fires and the condition becomes true. Remove will deselect the specified option. If it was earlier selected, it's going to deselect it. And please note that remove is not supported for the code scoped selection rules. It's only available for the product scope selection rules. So enable, if an option is already disabled, this action enables the checkbox so users can go ahead and select it. So disable is the opposite of it. Disabling an option will make the users unable to select the particular option. So then is enable and add. So enable and add, what it would do is it enable an option and it also automatically select it. So if you remember in our T-Mobile example, we wanted to show and add a T-Mobile budget plan. So when you say enable and add or show and add, so what this and add would do is it'll automatically go and select it. So disable and remove. So disable and remove is an example we saw in our use case as well. So it's going to deselect an option and disable it so users cannot select it. Show, it's going to show any hidden options if they are, and hide will prevent an option from showing. So show and hide are more from a visibility perspective. Show and add would show the option and also select it, very similar to enable and add, right? So enable is going to, if something was already disabled, it's going to enable it and then it's going to automatically select it, while show and add will show the option. Basically, it's not enabling it, it's showing the option. If this option was not there, it's going to show it and then it'll automatically select it. And the last one, remove and hide, this would deselect an option and hide it from the view. If we just pick hide, it will only hide the visibility of the option. If the user had already selected it before the product rule fired, then it will remain selected behind the scenes and will only not be visible and would not be removed. So if you want to hide and remove, choose this option carefully. So these are the different available action types that we could see for the selection rules. I'm in my Salesforce CPQ application and in the product rules tab. Let's quickly take a look at how we have configured the selection type product rule. This is our first use case. We are going to check for the carrier AT&T for our iPhone 12 bundle. So let's take a quick look at it. So I've given a descriptive product rule name. The type is selection. It's not validation or alert. We're trying to automatically, show and add and show or hide and remove options. So this is going to be selection type. I've made it active. It's going to check for all conditions met, and the scope is going to be the product configurator. So it's going to be product, and it's going to evaluate always. So it's a simple product rule as such from a header perspective. So I have created a condition. Let's quickly take a look at it. So our condition was to check for the carrier selected. If it is AT&T, only then we want certain actions to be performed. So that is what we are going to define in our condition here. So if you notice here, we have used the tested object and we have picked configuration attributes here, and my field is going to be carrier __ C. Please give the API names here in case you do not see the field that you created in this particular pick list. Please ensure you're updating this pick list, and while you do that, use the API name of the field. So it's going to check if the configuration attribute carrier has the value which is equal to AT&T. So only then we want this particular rule to fire. So that's what this error condition defines. So let's quickly take a look what our actions are. So I've gone ahead and created 4 different actions, right? So we wanted to show and add our AT&T's budget plan, or we just wanted to show our AT&T family plan, and we wanted to hide and remove the T-Mobile budget and family plan. So I've gone ahead and created 4 different actions here. Let me take you through the first action that we have created. So this is the first time you're seeing the product actions, right? We did not need this for the validation or the alert rule type. It's important for the selection rule. So let's quickly go through the fields here. So it's the product action number, which is auto-generated, and the product rule. Since we created from the product rule, this is also auto-populated. And the type is where we say what we want to do. So like we saw in our slides, we have different types. You can show and hide, or remove, or enable, disable. You can do a bunch of options here. So in our case, we want to show and add the AT&T budget plan, and quickly cancel so you can see this layout better. We have this required checkbox checked here. So whenever you use product actions with the adding, or technically enabling and adding, or showing and adding, right? Please make sure to check the required box. If you do not, the option will not successfully get selected and added. So this required checkbox is very important for the types of show and add, enable and add. Anything to do with add, you need to ensure the required checkbox is checked. And let's move a little down here under filter information. So there are a bunch of fields here. So filter field, so choose a product field that you want to filter your product options by. So that's what you use this particular field for. And there's a filter value. So choose the value on your filter field for filtering your product options. So this filter field should be a product field. So selection rules use the filter field and the filter value to apply the selection type to all the product options that match the product records. So that's what this filter will do. This is, I have not used this section here for our use case, but if you have a use case that will need to be filtered, then this is what you need to use. Operator is nothing but it's a logical operator that determines how the filter rule evaluates the filter value. And moving forward, we have a value attribute. So if you're using a global configuration attribute, you need to use this particular field for that. And yeah, it's pretty much that. So the value object, value field, and value attribute. So only filter rules can use these 3 fields. So we have taken a look at our product action. So I have done a similar thing for all the remaining ones I had. So let me take a look at the next one where we wanted to show the AT&T family plan. So we're not showing and adding, we just want to show. So the type is going to be show. If you notice, I have not checked the required box here, and I have picked my product. I want to show the AT&T family plan. Yeah, and that's it for this particular action. And I have gone ahead and created the hide and remove as well for both my T-Mobile budget plan and the family plan. So if you look at here, it says type is hide and remove. So it's going to hide and remove my T-Mobile family plan. So it's going to hide this product option from the visibility on the configurator. And it's also going to remove, if I've already selected it, it would go ahead and deselect it. The same I have done for my T-Mobile budget plan as well. So this is how we have configured this product rule for selection. And as a final step, like I always mention, ensure you're using the configuration rules to tie this particular product rule to your bundle. All right, so now let's go back and look at our second product rule, which we created for T-Mobile. So very similar to the AT&T, I've created another one to check for T-Mobile, right? So we're going to check for a carrier T-Mobile. So I've given a descriptive product rule name. The type is going to be selection. I'm going to make this active, and I'm going to check if all conditions are met. It's going to run on the configurator. That's why we have the scope as product, and the evaluation event is always. If I scroll down, I have my error condition, which is going to check if my carrier selected is going to be T-Mobile. So it's going to look for my configuration attribute. The tested field is my carrier field, and it's going to check if the value selected is equal to T-Mobile. If it is, I have 4 actions defined. One is to disable and remove my AT&T budget plan and my AT&T family plan. And it's going to show and add my T-Mobile basic plan, the budget plan, and it's going to show my T-Mobile family plan. So I have configured this in a similar fashion to the earlier product rule that we saw. Let me quickly show you a disable and remove since we have not seen that earlier. So if you notice here, the only thing that I've changed here is the type, right? Type is the disable and remove. So in our earlier product rule, we selected hide and remove. So this is not going to hide. So basically ATT and the budget plan and the family plan will still be visible to the user. It's just going to be disabled. And if it was already selected, it's going to get deselected. So that's the only difference, right? So I have also, what I have done is, in the product rule, I've gone ahead and added this again to the bundle. So I've linked my product rule with the bundle. So that's all with respect to the configuration of the selection product rules. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this works on our code. So I'm on my code. I'm going to add a product, which is iPhone 12 bundle. Let's quickly select. So you see this configuration attribute here called carrier, right? And if I scroll a little bit down, you can see that cellular plans is a feature. And when the carrier is none, you're noticing that we have all the 4 product options available for selection, right? So now, if you remember, our first selection rule that we created was for AT&T. Let's check that. So the moment I select AT&T as my carrier, you notice that only ATT budget plan and ATT family plan are visible, right? So the T-Mobile budget and family plan are hidden. They are no longer visible against this feature. And if you also notice, the ATT budget plan by default is selected because we said it is going to show and add, and ATT family plan is just show. I can go ahead and change it if I want to, but that's how by default it would show because of our configuration. Now let's go ahead and change this to T-Mobile and see what happens, right? So the moment I change it to T-Mobile, we see all the 4 options because we have not hidden it, right? What we tried to do was to disable and remove. So earlier we have selected ATT budget plan. If you notice here, it has removed, but it is disabled. Both ATT and budget plan and the family plan cannot be selected, right? However, the T-Mobile budget plan, because we selected show and add, it is showing it and it is also added it by default. And T-Mobile family plan is also shown here. So if you notice the difference when we did hide and remove, it did not even show the product options, right? But when you're disabling it, it will show it, but will have it just disable. It will not be available for selection. So this is how we have configured our selection rules for both these use cases. We have looked at product rules of types, validation, alert, and selection so far. Now let us look at the filter type of product rule. So the use case here is when the company offers a complimentary swag bundle and they regularly update the product offerings with new swag products. So in this case, it's easier to create a bundle that can contain any swag product rather than constantly updating the bundle's options based on your offerings, right? So say, for example, currently you offer, say, t-shirt, keychains, mugs as your complimentary swag, and it can be associated to different bundles. Say, for example, any iPhone products or any of your laptops, you want to offer a complimentary swag. So there are multiple bundles, and if you keep introducing new new swags, like new products, right? If suddenly you decide you want to introduce a handbag, you want to introduce a travel bag, you want to introduce a jacket as your swag, or anything else, right? So you will constantly keep updating products. So there are new swags coming in, and your product offering is being constantly updated. So imagine what a pain it would be if you have to go and update and create product options for each of these bundles that you're going to associate these swags to. So how nice it would be if you have a dynamic bundle where you have this particular bundle and the options for this particular feature of complementary swags can be dynamic, and you can have your latest offerings listed there instead of going and associating them as product options to every bundle. So that is what the filter product rule is going to do. So in our use case, we have an iPhone 12 bundle, and we have a feature for complementary swags. So we have a list of products which are of different product family, right? We have swags, we have Apple Watches, we have hardware, we have software, we have miscellaneous products. So we have a huge product catalog. So what we are going to do is we are going to look at all the products that belong to the product family swag in real time, and then we are going to update it as the product options for this particular feature. So the product options are dynamically added here. So when product family is equal to swag. So this way, the sales rep can go ahead and choose whichever option he wants to offer the customer. We are back in Salesforce CPQ under product rules, and let us check out the product rule that I've created for filters. So it's called the dynamic bundle for swags. So I have named my product rule. I've made it active. The type is going to be filter. It is not validation, alert, or selection. What we are trying to do is we are going to filter all the products which have a product family swag and display them as product options for the feature complementary swag, which belong to the bundle iPhone 12. So that is what we are trying to achieve through this particular product rule. So the type is going to be filter. It's going to run on our configurator, and I'm going to check for all conditions met, and I'm going to evaluate this always. If I scroll down, there is not any error conditions mentioned here, and I do have an action. Let us go and quickly look at it. So here, whenever you create a filter type of a product rule, the type can be default filter. And going a little further down, we will populate the filter information because this is a filter product rule type. So we are going to filter product family, which equals to swag. So that is what we are trying to filter here. So a couple things which are very important here, right? So even before we create this particular product rule, so ensure that in your product, let's quickly go there and let me show you what I have done. In your product iPhone 12, let me quickly search for this. Let's get to our features here. We have a feature for swag, right? So ensure that the option selection method is dynamic. This is very, very important, because if it is not dynamic, if it's going to be just click or add, then this is not going to work. So for dynamic bundles, it's very important that the feature that you are targeting for dynamic bundle has the option selection method dynamic. So what we did was we wanted all the product options to be dynamic under this particular feature called swags, right, under iPhone 12 bundle. So that's why I have gone ahead to my iPhone 12 bundle, pick this product feature, and ensure my option selection method is dynamic. So another thing that is very important for this filter type of a product rule is the filter field here is going to look for the product family equals swag, right? So ensure this field is available both in the product and the product option, right? Because you're going to, we are going to look through a list of products for the product family. So we need to ensure it's available on the product option as well. So we are able to map these two values and see and check for the correct product family, which is equal to swag, and return the same. Normally, we would have used the standard product family field on the product. However, the same field also exists on product option as part of the Salesforce CPQ package, but with a different API name. What is important here is to ensure the API name of the corresponding field across product and the product option match. To achieve this, we have created a formula field on product with the API name prod family __ C. So this formula field copies the pick list value selected on the standard product family field as a text value. To match this on the product option, we created a field with the same API name, prod family __ C. We made this a pick list field with the same values as the product family in the product. Once the field setup is complete, we simply added the API name as one of the pick list values here for the filter field. So I ensure these two steps are taken care. So that was on the product action. Let me quickly go back to the bundle. It's pretty simple, right? So we just created a product rule which said it's type filter, and then we went ahead and created an action where the type has to be default filter here, and we are trying to filter for all the products which belong to the product family, which is equal to swags. Now we have still not associated this to the product bundle. So that's when the configuration rule comes into play. So if you notice here, I've added my iPhone 12 bundle. I've linked it to this particular product rule. If you also notice, I've included the product feature because only against this product feature, I want my options to be updated dynamically. So I've also ensured I've added my product feature. So this is how we create dynamic bundles. So let's now quickly get onto our code and see how this works. I'm on my code. I'm going to select my iPhone 12. And if I scroll down, you will see that I have a feature called swags. And if you notice here, if I click on add options, it shows me a list of products that belong to product family swag. So just for the testing purposes, right? Let's go ahead and create a new product and see, we can see that here real time. Let us go into our products tab, and instead of creating a new product, let us pick this product which we have, travel bag. Right now, there is no product family associated with it. I'm going to make it swag. So we've updated the travel bag product to belong to the product family swag. Let us hit on save. Go back to our code. I'm going to cancel this real quick. And once we get on our swags feature, and click on add options, now we would notice that this product, which we updated just a minute back, travel bag with the product family swag, is available here for selection. So this is how we create the dynamic bundle. We already saw in our Salesforce CPQ product rules, the product rule scope can be either product, which is associated to a specific bundles, or code associated to the code. Rules evaluate across the code. If we were to create a code scope rule, it doesn't fire in the configurator, but in the line editor, wherein it will fire across all of the different products that we have on the code. So in a well-defined CPQ solution, the vast majority of the configuration logic needs to be contained within the configurator. It is designed for the purpose of taking the users through the process of configuring the bundles, selecting the right options, and validating it. It is specifically engineered that way for the performance because when we are working with one particular bundle in the configurator page, we can selectively load those product options and the product rules that are specific to that one bundle, and we configure and validate that configuration. Once we save it, we can take all of that logic and put it back in shelf and move on with a different bundle configuration, right? So it is great for performance as we are only being very selective about what we load into the memory. So all the rules we are looking to process, we are only examining the ones that are relevant. Whereas if we define rules that run at a code level, they are going to run all the time. If we put all the configuration logic here, imagine we have a large product catalog with large number of rules. We could just have a couple of line items on the code, but we wouldn't know which rules we actually have to examine. We have to go through all of them, evaluate all of those conditions, and only then we would know if we have to fire them or not. So that would take a lot of time and processing power, and definitely not a great user experience. Exactly why we should be very selective about creating rules at the code level. Here in our example, we have 6 bundles. See, if it would be really good if we could open up the first bundle, say bundle A, configure it, and then the logic is self-contained within that bundle, and we could repeat the process with the other bundles instead of taking all of that logic and running it all once in the entire code. In simple terms, do your configuration in the configurator. One other implication here to be aware of is that if we have rules that are running on a particular bundle, they are not aware of what is going on with any other bundles. So I cannot create rules in a bundle A which need to look at what's happening in bundle B or bundle C. It cannot be done with product scoped rules. In such cases, you need to use the code scoped rules. If we need to look across multiple bundles, the only way to do that is using the code scoped rules. Product rules, however, can look deeper within the bundle and scope. So for example, if bundle A has nested bundles within, then we can use product scoped rules to take care of that. Here are a few considerations to keep in mind while we use the scope for the product rule. Code scoped rules are not needed to be associated to specific bundles as they are evaluated all the time. Product scoped rules are associated to specific bundles using the configuration rules. Code scoped selection rules can only add a product. They can never remove or show or hide or enable or disable a product option. Code scoped selection rules only fire when products are added to a code. They do not fire on calculate or save. So one thing to be aware of here is it is possible for a user to delete lines that have been added by a code scoped selection rule. If your organization is using a large code threshold, meaning they have large codes and you have a large number of code lines, most likely you will have this package setting enabled, large code threshold. And if this is enabled and the code exceeds the threshold, code scoped rules are not evaluated. So please keep these things in mind. And like I mentioned earlier, very simply put, do your configuration in the configurator. To summarize, in today's session, we discussed about what product rules are, what are the different types of product rules. We looked at a few use cases to see how Salesforce CPQ offers the different types of product rules. We also looked at the summary variables and some guidelines around the scope for the product rules. Thank you for listening in. Hope you found this session informative. Thank you, Apex Hours, for giving us the opportunity to present this session.